Now I've just added a new mobility program to my app. It's the Big 5 mobility skills, mainly for people that are training handstands and calisthenics, but anyone that basically wants to hit these more common goals when it comes to flexibility. So we have back bridge, front splits, middle splits, forward fold, and straddle pancake. In the app, I've split the program into 3 sessions. We have back bridge and front splits on session 1. We have middle splits, forward fold, and pancake on session 2. And then the third session is a combo session where we visit all of the positions. Now in this video, I'm going to go through each of the exercises I use in session 1 and session 2, and I'm going to look at it from more of a beginner intermediate level, not intermediate to advanced. If you're intermediate to advanced, you probably know these positions already. And in lots of ways, these positions are easier to get into if you have more flexibility already. But we want to be looking more of the beginner, intermediate, what we need to look out for when it comes to conditioning our bodies into these positions. So first, let's quickly look at the hang and the thoracic mobility. So initial goal with the hanging is hands shoulder width apart, full body weight in that position, and just draping the body as much as possible. So you're trying to extend everything, make everything as long as possible. If that's too challenging to hold for time, have tippy toes on the floor in that position. Now, if you don't have anywhere to hang, you could just do something like this off a doorpost. So I'm pushing with this hand, pulling with this hand, turning sideways, and that's all going to get into the lats and the upper body. It's not as good as a hang, but it's still pretty good. And obviously do the same on the other side. A few options with the thoracic mobility, so we can go up and down into our extension and we can roll in that area. Obviously, if you don't have a roller and you're just using something like a yoga block, you're not going to be able to do the rolling, but you can do the extension. Whichever version you're doing, just make sure that you're getting the movement from where the roller or where the upper back is and not compensating through the low back or through the neck. Then number 2, we need to get the lower body ready for the splits. So we need the quads, the hip flexors, and the single leg hamstrings lengthened as much as possible. So the simplest way to look at this is to go into a lunge position, lift up the back foot. If you can, grab hold of the foot, ideally with both hands, pull the shoulders back and down, open the chest. Now this is going to get more into the quads, the thighs, try and get into a strong posterior tilt. So there, and then the hip flexor is the same thing, but driving the hip down more. So if I show you on the other leg, you'll be able to see better. So there, so I'm pulling down or pushing down as hard as I can into that position, trying to tuck under, trying to keep the abs and the glutes on. Now I shouldn't feel this in the low back. It should all be down the front there, at the front of the hip. If you're more flexible, both of those, you can go into extension, but most people are going to be in this upright position and focus on that upright torso. We definitely don't want to be in this position as it takes us away from the stretch. So really open up as much as we can there. Single leg hamstring is the same start position, so that lunge, and then all I'm going to do is lock out that front knee, see if I can get to fingertips. If I can't get to fingertips, place the hands on the floor. If fingertips is easy, go to palms, and then just walk forwards as far as you can, making sure you feel it in the hamstrings, the calves, and you're keeping that knee locked backwards and not bending it in any way. Now, once we've done 2 to 3 sets of this, we'll be ready to go into the front split hold and the back bridge. Now, the front splits can be very simple. We can go back into that lunge position, we can extend the front leg, so there's the hamstring, and then all we're going to do is increase the distance from the heel to the knee. So I can move the knee backwards, or I can slide the heel forwards, and just think I'm trying to spread apart those two things as much as possible. So if you're tighter, this is going to be your position. You might want to hold on to a couple of posts or a couple of chairs there, trying to have an upright torso, trying to keep the hips square, and then over time we're just looking at increasing the distance between the knee and the heel and make it as wide apart as possible. Now, I'd recommend some sort of mat, especially for the back knee. And these stretch positions, we want to make the body as comfortable as possible, because if it's stressful to the body, your body's not going to want to go back to it. Now, for the front split position, we do have 2 options here. We have this more passive position where we're just holding for time there, or we have more of an active position. So the active position is up there. So it feels a bit harder from a balance point of view, and you might not be able to go as low as your passive position, but this is great at building strength and conditioning in the position. And then for the back bridge, we need to get into a position where we can elevate the feet so it brings the shoulders on top of the hands. So if I kick over to the wall and walk the feet down the wall until I find the box, now I push the shoulders on top of the hands and hold there for time. Now, if I'm more flexible, I can obviously decrease the box. Now, if you're worried about kicking up to the box, just set the box up here, have the hands nice and close to the wall first, get comfortable kicking up there, and then just slowly increase the distance away from the wall with the hands until you get the same distance apart or distance away from the wall as you need to cover the box, and then
you can get into that position and build that with confidence. That's much easier than trying to push up to your back bridge position, and it's going to make the shoulders and the thoracic, the upper back, work more than the low back. And then once we get into the position, we're just holding there for time, pushing up and away with the shoulders and upper back. So that's day one. Then we're going to go into day two, where we're going to focus more on the middle splits, the forward fold, and the pancakes. So same start, going in with the hang, but for the lower body, the Cossack mobility squat. Now the Cossack mobility squat is fantastic because it's so good for the beginner and also for the advanced and everything in between. So the beginner can just start in this position, bend one knee like he's doing a squat, keep the other leg dead straight, come back up again, do the same on the other side. And then all you're doing is slowly going deeper and deeper. So I'm trying to keep both feet facing forwards. I'm trying to keep the torso as upright as possible as I sit into that squat position. And as simple as that, we go deeper and deeper on each repetition and just work into our flexibility. So this is fine to turn into the hamstring as we get deeper into the position, but I would first go as deep as you can with the foot facing forwards. And then once you hit your limit, then go into the hamstring, but then come back up the way you went down. Then we have arguably the best forward fold exercise, the Jefferson curl. Now the Jefferson curl is so good because it's hitting two things. It's hitting the spinal mobility. So as I go down, I'm articulating each part of the spine and rolling over bit by bit. So first of all the upper back, then the mid back, then the low back. I'm keeping the knees soft so I can focus on that spine. But once I get to here, I'm going to lock the knees backwards, and then I'm going to start to lengthen as much as I can into that forward fold position. I'm going to hold for a few seconds, and then I'm going to bend the knees, roll back through the spine, and back up again. With the final goal being to get a dead straight line from the hips to the heels, and then the hips to the shoulders, the head, or the hands, so we have two long lines. Now to start with, most people are going to look like this, but think of this as potential. If I can close this gap by getting deeper and getting the torso closer to the legs, that's just going to increase my forward fold. Now, if you are very comfortable with that movement, it can be progressed by adding a load, so you could hold a barbell in that position, but definitely to start with, make sure that you're listening to the body, seeing how the spine feels when you're rolling it bit by bit, and just focusing on that lengthening, and then at a later date add a weight. Then we have the pigeon and the butterfly stretches. Now, a great setup for the pigeon stretch is to do it elevated. If I do it elevated, I can really just focus on this one leg and this hip. If I do it on the floor, this back hip flexor tends to get in the way, especially if you're starting out. So finding a comfortable position there where your hips are square, my knees pushed into the mat, my heels pushed into the mat, my torso is upright, and I'm sitting deep into that position. So just driving down, and I can feel that into the hamstring and the butt and the glute there. And then I'm just going to lean forwards with a flat back to wind it up even more. I can push down deeper, and I can just hang out in that position, or I can do repetitions up and down. Now you'll know you've got it in the right place because you'll feel it in the butt. Now the butterfly stretch is easily progressed, so we can go nice and close to the wall so we have an upright torso. I'm going to bring the heels or the feet together, and then I'm just going to push the knees down as much as possible. Now this is the easiest version where I'm raising the hips up. If that's nice and comfortable, I can get rid of the block, sit on the floor. Same thing, upright torso, bring the heels in towards the groin, have the feet together, pushing the knees down towards the floor. If that's comfortable, I can go even harder by raising up the feet in that position with the same setup, driving the knees down. Now you can progress it further by taking the head forwards. You can add weight to the knees. But again, for the beginner, intermediate, I'd just be hanging out in the positions and get comfortable with the setup and the stretches first. Then we can get into the actual straddle pancake with the straddle good mornings. Now there's a few variations of what to do in this straddle position, but first of all, we just need to get comfortable with the setup. So ideally, I want to have a flat low back. We don't want to have a low back that sticks around or goes in that direction. We want it to be going more in this direction. So more of an anterior tilt, or at least a flat position. Ideally knees locked, but if you're new to it, you might even need to have the knees bent and just hold that position. You might feel a good stretch there. If it's easy, lock those knees, start to lean forwards. Having something in front of you is good because I can take it away, come back up, go back down, take it further away. That gives you a target to slowly extend and lengthen the spine as you go up and down. And then as you get more comfortable with the stretch, we can start to open and close the position with straight arms, or at least reaching the elbows away in a deeper position by taking the hips closer to the floor. We can play with movements to the side, whether that's rotation or lengthening the spine. But as a priority, I would going forwards as far as you can in the position. And then lastly, we have the middle splits themselves. Now the middle splits can be like the front splits where we keep it very simple. All we're looking to do is take the feet as wide as possible. So if I have markers like these yoga blocks, and then all I'm going to do is slowly take them out. Now as you get deeper towards your middle splits, you're going to feel like you get stuck. Now when you get stuck in that position, if you lean forwards and close the hip, you might be able to wiggle down a little bit deeper, and then you can try and open the hip again, which will be harder. But I recommend you play with both of those positions, both the closed hip and the open hip position, and you just need to find your pathway to get deeper and deeper into it. Now, as you get lower, you might need to put your hands on the floor, but when you do get your hands on the floor, still try and do that open hip position as best you can. Try and hold it there for time, then close the hip and get a little bit deeper. You might need to use some sort of support when you're doing this, so to get you into that closed hip position, then into the open hip position, and hold there for time. Just remember, if you are using the support, use it like this. So I've got a light hold on it. I'm not putting all my weight on it, because it'll be near on impossible then to open up. So that would be session 1, that would be session 2. Like I say, there's a session 3 where we just visit the positions. And in the program on the app, I obviously go through all the sets and the reps. There's demonstration exercises, and you can swap out the levels if you find they're too easy or too hard. If you're interested in the app, link is down in the description. Let me know if you have any questions down below or any video requests, and I'll speak to you in the next one.